We welcome to the show Gigi and Jacky of the Military Wives Choir. How's it going?
Very well. It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
No problem. So you have a new single out on the 2nd of November.
6th of November.
At what date?
The 6th of November.
Okay,
on the Friday just before Remembrance Sunday.
You have a new single out on the 6th of November, your version of Abide With Me. What can you tell us about it?
So the music team were very keen to respect the history of this very well-loved hymn, as it would have been back in 1920. But as it's being re-released, they wanted to make sure that they slightly modernised it. So they've added some sort of 21st century colours to it. But we think the sound will be sort of represent our authentic Military Wives Choir sound, but also resonate with anyone who has any relationship with anybody of those 165,000 unknown warriors back 100 years ago.
Great. So this is to mark the 75th anniversary of VE Day, and you actually record it individually in your homes, didn't you?
Oh, no, we didn't. It was very exciting. We went to a studio in not far from King's Cross in London, which was a real experience in itself. We were almost soloists going into our own individual studios. So we had a really different experience from the one we normally have as a choir singing together, and hopefully they're going to blend those wonderful voices together and make it sound back to what we are, which is a Military Wives Choir, all singing and sharing those voices together.
Yeah, none of us, we've never ever, it was so different to us. I mean, it became like a journey in itself, that suddenly 70, I think there were 70 different women coming from 30 different choirs all over the UK. So that was a complete mission to organise in itself. And then, of course, you had all the social distancing and everything else. And then when we arrived, we found out that Paloma Faith had been recording in the studio the week before us. So, of course, we all felt frightfully important suddenly. But it was very much one-on-one. And then, you know, the singing, feeling almost like, yeah, as Jacky says, singing like you were singing a solo to 5 million people. But actually, it was just the sound guys who were relying on very much to kind of blend our voices together and make it sound as it would do as if we were singing shoulder to shoulder, as we normally do with all our fellow choirettes.
It sounds great. Have you heard it yet?
Well, just a sneaky peek, not the whole thing. We have seen a sneaky peek because it's going to be accompanied by a music video which tells the story of the unknown warrior and captures the final journey through Whitehall to Westminster Abbey. And there's a documentary that goes with it that we were interviewed for on the day as well. But no, we haven't heard it all, but I understand that you're playing it immediately after this interview. So we're looking forward to that very much.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, well, it might be the first time you hear it, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it'll be next Saturday that it will be aired.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
So what was it like planning to record Abide With Me during a lockdown? It must have been hard because in a choir, you're very much a team, aren't you?
Yes, so I've been lucky enough to sing with 5 different Military Wives choirs since 2011. And it was, I mean, every single week since then, pretty much. And so suddenly during lockdown, everything stopped. But also tragically, my stepfather died of COVID during lockdown. And so when everything started again, I didn't really feel in the mood for singing because, of course, music just makes you burst into tears straight away. And so for the first couple of choir rehearsals where we should have been learning this, I didn't go because I didn't feel ready for it. And then it was the sister of a great friend of mine who rang up, who works for the agency that was representing the Westminster City Council. And she said, we're doing this thing for the 100 years since the burial of the unknown warrior. How would you feel about a collaboration with a Military Wives, or with our particular choir, the South London Military Wives Choir? And I was like, yes, that sounds completely amazing. That would be wonderful. And then since then it's grown arms and legs massively. And our Julia, who's involved with our who runs our whole network, has managed to, massively extend it to 30 different choirs. But it was this very thing that kind of got me singing again. From having felt too vulnerable and not ready to. It's really poignant that it was this particular project that kind of got me up and running again and made me feel ready to, embrace singing again and, with everyone. So it was really special, and hopefully we won't go into lockdown again and find that we can't do it. But, we've all learned to kind of sing together on Zoom now, and, you just have to do what you can do in these circumstances, don't you?
Abide With Me was one of the hymns that was actually in the burial service, used in the burial service in 1920 when they brought the unknown warrior back. He was one of the 165,000. Actually, my great-grandfather, Arthur Cornhill, was one of the 165,000 who wasn't brought back, who is on a wall in Thiepval. We've been to see his name. And for me, that singing Abide With Me, with the lyrics and the connotations of how it having been in as part of that service in 1920 was just huge. If you listen to the lyrics, it really takes you to that step back and makes you appreciate the sacrifices that they all made. And my great grandfather was 29 years old. He left behind a wife and a mother. And they didn't get a chance to sort of say goodbye. So for them, that would have been somewhere that they could go to say their goodbyes, which is, it's huge, isn't it? For emotionally, for you as a family to know that person has been represented, all those people who fell and were unable to be found.
It's a great tribute, isn't it, that you're able to do to both of your families?
Yeah, in fact, Abide With Me means, actually the song means an awful lot to me, because I talked about my stepfather a second ago, who brought me up from the age of 8, but my father was, in fact, both my father and my stepfather were both in the army. My father was in the Blues and Royals, and he was on exercise just for my 6th birthday, and he was running through Windsor Great Park and dropped dead. I mean, absolutely horrendous situation. But the reason why Abide With Me means a lot is because the Blues and Royals really, really generously gave him a memorial plaque in his honour, which is at the front of the Girls' Chapel in Wellington Barracks. And it was at the dedication of the memorial service that the Blues and Royals band played one song, and the song that they played was Abide With Me. So that song has meant all my life something, and especially to my mother, has meant it's been the song, I suppose, of, my father dying. Not that we're remotely morbid about it or anything, but it just means an awful lot. And then of course with my stepfather dying recently as well, there's kind of that whole kind of that Requiem hymn comes to the fore again. And in fact, so there's a line in it, through cloud and sunshine, Lord, abide with me, which I think means so much to anyone who's suffered a loss during COVID, because it just means, well, through cloud and sunshine, be with me, stay with me. And
remember them.
Yeah, exactly. In the same way that 100 years ago, the line, where is death's sting, where grave thy victory, I triumph still, if thou abide with me, is so appropriate to the time then. So it sort of crosses the barrier of both. And it's a beautiful hymn, and I really hope we do it justice.
You have, I've heard it. It sounds very good.
You've heard it before us.
Yeah, sounds quite Christmassy actually in its own way, believe it or not.
Yeah. So, that's lovely. That sounds because obviously a remembrance time often songs can be perceived as being quite downbeat. So I think that it's a time where, you know, at the moment we've all been downbeat enough, and it's just lovely to have as much cheer as possible.
Exactly. And of course, Vera Lynn brought out a song recently, didn't she, with Catherine Jenkins, a very famous song. What is it about these songs, you think, that in times that are hard, we seem to go back to them, don't we?
Again, I think it links back to what we've just said. It's those memories, isn't it? It's actually thinking about the past, thinking about those people who, you know, our husbands today, and those people in the past during all the wars, that have committed their lives and their souls and their bravery to, you know, keeping us all safe, and, you know, giving up what they needed to in order to protect their country and their nation. And we just want to honour that, really, and we've honoured that through our singing. We love coming together to sing, even though we weren't able to come together as a choir. We came together separately to sing, but just to be a part of this, you know, the choir, the Military Wives Choir, for us is a huge, it's an honour, but it's also a friendship. It's a gathering together. We're there for each other wherever we move, wherever our husbands are around the world. We're there for each other, and I think it's quite poignant that at this time of year, when we love to sing together in our, you know, in many remembrance services around the, you know, the country. Actually, although we couldn't sing together, we did it in a different way this time, to come together, to bring our voices together, to share the memory of, you know, of these unknown soldiers. You know, my great grandfather, who died last day of the Battle of the Somme, very, very sad, you know, but actually didn't give his life for nothing, you know, gave it to you know, help us all.
Yeah, definitely. And with the Military Wives Choir, how big is the actual group of ladies? How many are there?
So
it's a lot, isn't there?
It started in 2011 with just 2 choirs, and has since grown to it's over 2,000 women singing in over 70 choirs across the UK and overseas. And because this is a network, the brilliant thing about it is every time you move, have I talked about this already? I don't know, but there's a ready set of amazing friends there to, have I talked about that already? No, to welcome you on arrival at your new posting. We've had 3 houses in 3 different years, and it feels like that you're always moving away from friends and family, you know, and therefore when your husband is also away on operations or extended exercises, and in my situation, my children are at boarding schools, so suddenly you find yourself, you can feel a bit lonely and a bit vulnerable, and the choir is there to sing, to share, to support. And we share a core repertoire, which means that literally on your first rehearsal, you can sing at the top of your voice from the get-go, if you're brave enough. And there's always plenty of cake. And then when it's time to move on again, whenever your husband is posted, and actually I should say at this juncture that it's not just military wives that sing in the choirs. There's also service women, and also military mothers and military daughters, so people who have another connection, not just military wives. But the choir network organises shared events like this one, where you have the opportunity to see the same faces time and time again, so you never really have to say goodbye when you move on, which is really lovely.
And we are tri-service, you know, Navy, Army, RAF. It's, you know, a chance for us all to get together. We've got that shared connection, but also there's such diversity, which is brilliant.
And there's always a box of tissues in the middle of the room. Nobody questions anything. It's one of those weird groups where you kind of go, and because you have that sort of mutual understanding, there's always somebody who bursts into tears, their husband's away or whatever it may be, and nobody even bats an eyelid. It's just sort of, you know, you just crack on as normal because you have that empathy that is just there. I remember I was singing with Dishforth Military Wives Choir a couple of years ago in Chester Cathedral, and my husband was in Iraq for 6 months. I should add actually that actually in this day and age 6 months is not long. I've got friends at the moment whose husbands are away for 9 months and 12 months, so 6 months is not for me. But we sang Les Miserables bring him home. And I just completely fell to pieces in the performance. Hopefully I didn't make a song and dance about it. I tried to be as discreet as possible, but couldn't get a word out. And it was just sort of completely normal. Nobody even sort of, nobody was looking, nobody was staring. Everyone else just sang around me, and then I composed myself, pulled myself together like a pair of curtains, and on we went for the next song, and then I was okay again. But it's one of those bizarre situations where, had you been in any other scenario, everyone would have been, my goodness, she's crying, what's going on? It's just sort of taken as fait accompli.
As you say, there must be great camaraderie because you're all in it together, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Hence the stronger together strapline.
Yeah, straight, that sharing, that singing, sharing those friendships is just wonderful. And it's been really challenging actually during COVID. I know lots of other choirs, not military, just military wives choirs, but lots of choirs have had the same problem where, it's wonderful to still be able to sing with Zoom, but it's not quite the same. So we are all, really waiting with them, with excitement, aren't we, to be able to go out and sing together again for concerts and things like that. And small rehearsals are starting and taking form now, which is wonderful, getting together again, very, very socially distanced to keep us all safe.
Hand gel at every turn. Yeah. But it's great that, that those measures, it's important that we respect those measures, but it's just also lovely that we can sing together in whatever situation.
Yeah, so it was going to be a huge ceremony, I think, at Westminster, were the original plans. But obviously this is, we felt really strongly, I think, as military wives and with working together with the Westminster Council, that we would still honour this important event in whatever way we could do.
And so that the single will be available for digital download on the 6th of November, and I think you can download it from whichever channel you get your music from, whether it's Spotify, what other ones are there? Amazon, iTunes, exactly. And I think also you can see it on the Military Wives Choir's YouTube channel as well, if you don't have anything like that. So, but I think the fact that there's a video, a really moving video that goes with it, with all the original footage from 1920, will I think
that shares the story.
It does completely. Yeah
definitely. So the military, did you know about the Military Wives film that was also released this year, wasn't it?
We're going to absolutely die when I tell you about my involvement in the film. I was Kristen Scott Thomas's body double, for starters. And about 10 months before the film took off, my husband was commanding his regiment in Catterick, and because the film is very much loosely based on the actual coming together of the military wives choirs, and therefore my involvement is completely separate to that. But Christian played the commanding officer's wife, which was my role at the time, and they got in touch with me. Well, they got in touch with my husband to ask first of all whether they could film in his barracks, and then in turn the stone grew a lot of moss, and I was suddenly involved in all sorts of really exciting aspects. But they based the furniture, Christian's clothes, her jewellery, on mine, which was lovely because they sort of wined and dined me and really looked after me. And then when they came and filmed in it, I managed to get quite a few of the actual real military wives involved to be extras in it, because they were spending a fortune on extras from an agency. I said, my goodness, we'd all love to do this for free. And then I was Kristen's body double, which was lovely. And she and Greg Wise, who plays the commanding officer, came and stayed with me for a couple of days in our house in Catterick during the filming. In fact, we've become quite good friends actually since, which is really lovely. So there's been lots of personal involvement from my perspective, but I think for the whole network, for anyone with the military wives, it's just really lovely to have that story told of loosely how the choir came together. There's no Gareth in it. It's much more about the women, and it's a real feel-good. Well, in fact, it's kind of sold as a feel-good film, but actually you'll bawl your eyes out from start to finish in it. It's got a great soundtrack, and also at the end, the real military wives are actually singing in it as well.
Yes, we all got to sing at the end, which was wonderful. Yeah,
great.
Yeah, the credits. Yeah.
Frustratingly, of course, it came out in lockdown, which meant that nobody was allowed to go to the cinema, which is obviously going to affect ratings and everything else. But they therefore released it much earlier and put it on other channels, whatever. So I think, but if you haven't seen it yet, it is such a feel-good film, and it's a really lovely way of showing our story. So yes, go watch it.
And I remember the original TV show, as you mentioned. Yeah, it was a real tearjerker, the stories.
Yes, so that was our lovely ladies from Chivenor and Plymouth, whose husbands were deployed in Afghanistan in 2011, and that tour was awful. My husband was out there at the same time, but nothing to do with this. And you know, we all lived in fear of the knock on the door. It was the people were dying far too frequently, and it was the power of music that brought the women together. And it just goes to show how singing together brings you stronger together. So we owe a lot to that documentary, because it's what you know, it's why everyone else who sings now in one of the military wives choirs came to be.
And as a military wife, when your husband's away, obviously it's very difficult. Do you have to turn it off? As in, like, when it's on the TV, you can't, or do you have to watch it when things are happening, when it's bad?
I think it all is dependent on your own personal. I mean, I tend to try and carry on with life as best I can and not think about it. If you don't think about it, you can get on with it. And I think that's where the choir really helps, to have a bit of normality, but also people going through the same thing, particularly when you're in a regiment together and everybody's off together. My husband was always sort of off at a different time to everybody else's, so everybody else had their husband home and I had 9 months without him, so that was quite tricky. So you needed to you know, sort of carry on as best you could do, but it's always in the back of your mind. You're always worrying, you're always thinking, and many people spend hours just you know, poring over the news and waiting for the next the next news bulletin to just know that they're okay. It just depends how you deal with it.
It's much easier now than it was 15 years ago. My daughter was born 2 weeks after my husband deployed to Iraq. I think it was Iraq. Yes, it was Iraq. And we had no FaceTime or anything like that, like of course you have now, where you can literally sort of have your husband sort of, you know, having supper with you. Then he was out in the field. Was he in Iraq? Was he in Afghanistan? I'm suddenly confused. Too many wretched too many deployments. But he was out in the field and with a satellite telephone, 6 or 7 months, and of course came home at the very end and met his daughter when she was 6 months old. And I used to send him cassette tapes, which took about a month to get out there, of the noises that she made and, you know, little things like that. But now it's much easier, but also we're not really engaged in sort of a fighting role at the moment, and therefore it's more sort of desk jobs out there, which is much more reassuring for one's loved ones who are left behind, because you're not waiting for that dreaded knock on the door, which is what it was from sort of, you know, 2011 and backwards. I think if you know your husband's going to come home safe and sound, you don't mind. You just go, well, it's fine, I can cope, because I know I'm going to see him in 6 months' time, and probably in our rest and recuperation halfway through as well. But if you don't know whether your husband is whether you're going to see him again, and you've got children who you're trying to support and make them feel confident, and you have to be truthful and honest to them, it's a whole different ballgame. But hopefully we're not in that situation again for a long time, if ever.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely to speak to you, and we're going to play the single now, Abide With Me.
Yay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I hope that everybody will go out and buy it. It'd be really great to have your support, and thank you all for listening to us.